what's going on? I want to share with you guys something that's made me six figures since my sophomore year in college. Graduated a couple years back. Owner of Ready Media, or marketing company, and I'm documenting my path to building a $10 million a year business. And what I want to talk about is first principles thinking. It's something that every single person could use a little bit more of. Okay, and so most people think Elon Musk is smarter. And by the way, I ruthlessly stole this from him. But he's not. Well, arguably he is. But he does think a lot different than most people. And I'll show you how this works in a minute. So first principles is a physics style way of thinking. And so instead of thinking like this is always how it's been done, you boil a problem down to its most basic facts and then you reason up from there. Okay? So most people think by analogy. So they say like rockets are expensive because rockets have always been expensive. And first principles thinking would be like, well, what do we know for sure, right? And so, take Elon Musk and rockets as this example. He knows that buying a rocket off the shelf is like $60 million or something crazy like that. And instead of accepting that, he asked, well, what is a rocket made out of? Aluminum, titanium, carbon fiber, electronics, fuels. And what do those raw materials cost on the market? The answer is a tiny, tiny fraction of 60 million. So the real truth wasn't that rockets are 60 million, it's the way that we build the rockets makes it extremely expensive, okay? And so from that, SpaceX redesigned rockets from the ground up and drove down the cost like tremendously, right? So we can apply that thought process to any problem. So you pick any problem, I can't grow my business or I can't lose weight or whatever the problem that you have in your life. And you list every assumption that you're making about the problem, right? For example, it might be like, it's really hard to get customers, ads are too expensive, I can't hire the right people, etc. And you list them all down. And then you attack each assumption. You say, how do I know this is true? What if the opposite were true? And then you basically boil the problem down into just facts that are, observable, and they can't be, it's not opinion based, right? It's factual, concrete evidence. And then you rebuild it from scratch, right? So I'll give you two examples. I have one friend who's trying to make 10K a month, and I have one friend who is trying to get her master's degree in biomedical science so that she can be in the medical field. Now, both of these people economically don't have a lot of resources. They don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of resources in general. And so they both feel like that goal is impossible. So first thing is I'll start with the med school example, or the master's degree. And I said, okay, her reasoning was it's too expensive. She would never be able to pay for it. She can't work and get her master's degree at the same time, which is false, but you have to make trade-offs. And she wasn't willing to work and do her master's degree because she's afraid that if she does both, she'll be stressed, she'll sacrifice her health, and she won't do well in school because she's multitasking, which is fine, okay? So it didn't take us that long. We did first principles thinking, and I said, well, first of all, if it's too expensive, can you spend a year working to make money to save for it? And the answer was yes. And the question is, well, then how much does it cost to get this degree? So we actually know how much we need to save. And we looked, and we also found out that there is a ton of online masters that you can take. And so just by doing it took like 20 minutes, but we were able to find 3 schools that have exactly what she needs. She has all the requirements that are required for the program, and it was going to cost about $25,000. And I said, okay, now we have some facts, okay? So we know that you need about $25,000, and then I asked her, what are your living expenses? And she said that she can live on about $1,500 a month. That includes her rent and her basic, food, etc. And I said, okay, perfect. So we really need to save about 50 grand to just be safe, right? Add a little bit of cushion in there. And so if we can save 50 grand, you can then apply online. You can take an online course. You will have the money to pay for it, and you can still continue to make money and do other things. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, you're going to have your master's degree, and now you have way more opportunity. So first principles thinking allowed her to actually see that as an option. And before, she just thought it wasn't, she was, I don't want to say the victim mentality, but she was blaming her outside circumstances for preventing her from hitting her goal. Okay, so first principles thinking, we were able to kind of understand what is actually required, how do we get it, and then figure out a plan. And most of the times you have to start with an end in mind. You have to have an idea of what the end goal is or the problem you're trying to solve. And most people do not take 2 steps back to fucking figure it out. And that's why they're stuck for years, okay? So, example number 2. Now we're talking, we went from academics to now we're going to business. So I have a buddy who wants to make $10,000 a month. So he is on a compensation plan to where he cold calls and he makes $300 for every meeting he gets. So this is not closing a sale. He just has to get an opportunity for the closer to step in. So he cold calls. He says, hey, like blah, blah, blah. Here's our product. Here's how we can help you. Would you be interested if we could like set up a 15-minute meeting? We can show you how it is. We aren't trying to sell you anything. We just want to show you what we do. And if it's a good fit, we can go from there. If he's able to secure time, he gets $300. So I said, how many calls are you making? The answer was he wasn't making that many. But in this example, if on 100 calls, he on average sets 2 meetings on 100 calls, I asked him, well, how long does it take to make 100 calls? We pulled up the data. It took him about 3.5 hours in the phone software. We could see how many time or how long he spent dialing. And out of 100 people, about 35 answer. Out of 35 answers, he gets 2 meetings on average. And I said, man, so you're making $600 on 3.5 hours. You're getting paid a lot. And he was thinking that it was the opportunity vehicle, like $300, I need to go find a job that pays more. And in my head, it's like, no, let's boil it down to facts. If I take my $10,000, I have my handy dandy calculator here, $10,000 divided by 300. This means he needs to get 33 meetings a month to make $10,000 a month. 33 meetings. Again, facts. We're looking at facts, just numbers. If you need 33 meetings, divided by 20, because there's 5 work days, 4 weeks, divided by 20, basically means he needs to be getting close to 2 meetings per day. 1.6, okay? He needs to be getting about 1.6 meetings. So 1 to 2 meetings a day, he will hit his goal. I said, look, you told me, based on the numbers, you get 2 meetings for every 3.5 hours of straight dialing that you do. So all you have to do is dial for 4 hours every day, and the goal will take care of itself. The problem is we look at the consistency, and some days he's making calls, some days he's not. Why? Because he has a bunch of other reasons. He has doubt, he's nervous, he has all these things. And the thing is, facts don't lie, money doesn't lie, just do what the fuck the common sense tells you to do. And so I said, look, if you want to make sure that $10,000 a month is for sure going to happen, instead of calling for 3.5 hours, why don't you call for 6 every day? If you call for 6 hours every day, based on your numbers, you will for sure get 2 meetings. So 6 hours, again, that's less than a full work day for a 9-to-5 job, okay? And he has the luxury of doing this from home. And so I told him, 6 hours a day, you're going to be getting, by your math, 4 meetings. But again, you can make double, you can make 20 grand a month. But in this example, let's just say that with averages, you're going to still only get 2 meetings per day, but now it's more for sure. All he has to do is 5 days a week call for 6 hours, which is a 30-hour week to make $10,000, which means on a monthly basis, he needs to call for 120 hours, right? And if you divide 10,000 divided by 120, basically for every hour he calls, he's getting paid $80 an hour, which, again, I'm not trying to be rude here, but based on his degree and all of his stuff, he would never get an $80 an hour paying job. The most he would get is maybe a $22 an hour job. So for every hour he dials, he can make $83. So it's like, again, we question the requirements, we question the facts, we don't make any assumptions, and then you just have to do it. You just have to do it, and nobody wants to do it, okay? So anyway, the whole point of this video is that don't admire Elon Musk thinking, actually apply it. Pause this video, think about a problem in your life, and boil it down to facts, okay? Take all your emotions, your assumptions, all the reasons why you can't do it should be reasons why you should do it, okay? And it's also a way better story. Like for my friend who's trying to get a master's degree, it's like, even though you didn't have the resources and everything was stacked against you and the system wasn't set up for you to succeed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, how much more of an epic story would it be to say that you had all those things stopping you and you overcame them, rather than saying that those were all the reasons why you stopped and then having regret? Anyway, that's my TED Talk for this video. I hope that this was valuable, and I hope somebody will watch this and it will help you, because it has tremendously helped me. It has made me a lot of money. It has helped me solve problems that I didn't think were solvable. And honestly, it's just changed my perspective on a lot of things. But anyway, I hope that this video was useful. Like, comment, subscribe. I read all the comments, so I appreciate it, and I will see you next time.